Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I struggled a little bit with the prep for this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, usually we're tearing apart tech trends or, dissecting historical battles, hard science. We look for the data, the logic, the how. But
Today's a little different.
today's very different. We're looking at a system that claims to map human destiny based on where a few planets were floating 5,000 years ago. We are diving into the philosophical engine block of Vedic astrology, or Joish,
Right.
and we are pulling from some pretty dense source material today, the Mahakal analysis, Bipin Bahari, Parashara. Our mission is to understand the foundation of this before we look at any specific stars, but I'll be honest with you right out of the gate. My skepticism meter isn't just twitching, it's basically redlining.
Well, it is good that you're uncomfortable. It really is. It means you are awake.
I'm awake, sure, but I'm also, a little wary. We're talking about a system that claims to know you better than you know yourself. And in my world, that usually sits right next to flat earth theory or crystal healing.
I understand that completely.
But I read the source material, specifically that Mahakal analysis, and it's distinct. It is not talking about daily horoscopes in the back of a tabloid. It's talking about deep philosophy.
It is talking about the architecture of reality itself. But before we get into the math, and believe me, there is a frightening amount of math coming in our future deep dives. I want you to just put down the skepticism for a moment.
Okay.
Just look around. I want you and everyone listening to imagine we are sitting in a coffee house in Vienna.
A coffee house.
Yes. High ceilings, the smell of roasted beans in the air, the faint clinking of a silver spoon against a porcelain saucer. Just settle into that feeling.
All right, I'm with you. I've got my my melange. I'm comfortable. But why Vienna?
Because Vienna is a place where time moves differently. You sit, you think, you observe. And because I want you to imagine that across this little marble table, I am not holding up a birth chart. I am holding up a mirror.
A mirror. Okay. But see, usually when people get into astrology, it feels like the exact opposite of a mirror. It feels like an escape. It's vanity.
Ah, the modern trap.
Right. Oh, I'm acting crazy because Mercury is in retrograde. It's just an excuse to focus on oneself, isn't it? What's my sign? Why am I so special?
Yeah, that is the modern misunderstanding. That is just noise. In the ancient source material we're looking at today, the premise is radical and actually quite confronting. The chart is not a crystal ball to doom scroll through your future.
Doom scroll your future. I like that.
It's true, but it is a mirror. The Mahakal source material asks a very specific question. It asks, how long will you run away from your own image?
Man, that is a heavy question for a Tuesday morning.
It is the only question that matters. The philosophy argues that most people come to astrology wanting reassurance. They want to be told, you will be rich, or you will find love. But the true purpose of the horoscope is atmajnana.
Atmajnana, meaning?
Self-realization. It is about looking in that mirror and seeing the baggage you have been dragging around for lifetimes, baggage you didn't even know was yours.
Baggage I didn't know was mine. See, that's the part that trips me up. If I look in a mirror, I see my face, I see the scars I remember getting, I see the gray hairs I actually earned. But this system claims to show me scars from when? Before I was born.
Precisely. It reveals the root system of the tree, not just the leaves you can see on the surface. And this is where we really have to talk about the operating system.
Right.
You cannot understand the software, the predictions, the personality traits until you understand the machine running it. You asked about the logic earlier. The first logical hurdle is always the source of this knowledge.
Yeah, and that is my biggest hurdle by far. Because we are talking about texts, the Vedas, the Vedangas that claim to be thousands of years old. No Hubble telescope, no supercomputers, no satellites.
None of that.
And yet, the sources describe them calculating planetary orbits, predicting eclipses, and understanding the precession of the equinoxes with a precision that we didn't match in the West until, the last few centuries. How? Was it just a lucky guess?
If you guess the lottery numbers once, it's luck. If you guess them every week for 1,000 years, it is a system.
Fair point.
But they didn't use observation in the way you and I think of it. They didn't look out through a glass lens. They looked in. And this brings us to a core concept in the literature. Shruti.
Shruti, the text translates that as that which is heard.
Yes. But don't think of heard like hearing a conversation or listening to music. The sources emphasize that the Vedas were aparuha. That is a critical Sanskrit term. It means not authored by humans.
Okay, hold on. If humans didn't write it, who did? Are we going into ancient aliens territory here?
Uh,
Because that's usually where this road leads.
no, no aliens. Think of it more like biological technology.
Biological technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sources describe the ancient rishis, the sages, not as authors or poets, but as human antennas. Or, if you want a Silicon Valley analogy, they were biological supercomputers.
Okay, I'm listening.
They went high into the Himalayas, into deep, deep states of meditation. And they quieted the noise of the conscious mind so completely that they could pick up a signal
A signal from where?
from the
Exactly.
background hum of the universe itself.
Yeah.
The Rig Veda has a famous hymn, the Nasadiya Sukta. It talks about the vibration that existed before creation, the code of reality, if you will.
So they were tapping into that code.
Yes. The rishis didn't calculate the math on a blackboard. They heard the math and the vibration of existence. They accessed the source code directly. It was a cosmic download.
A cosmic download. That's a fascinating way to frame it. Intuition as high-speed data processing. So they download this massive database, the Vedas, and where does astrology fit in? Is it like an app within that operating system?
It is the eyes of the operating system. The texts define Jyotish as the Chakshu, the eye of the Vedas.
The eye. Okay, explain that. If the Vedas are the body of knowledge, why do they need eyes?
Because a body without eyes is blind. It doesn't know when to act. The Veda contains the instructions for rituals, for agriculture, for how to live a good life. That is the how.
Okay.
But knowing how to plant corn is completely useless if you don't know when to plant it. If you execute the perfect code in the dead of winter, the crop fails. Jyotish provides the vision of time. It tells you when the universe is open to receive your action.
So it's the cosmic scheduling API. It coordinates the user's action with the system's downtime.
Exactly. It aligns the microcycle of your life with the macrocycle of the universe. It is all about efficiency. Why swim upstream when you can just wait for the tide to turn?
Makes sense.
But this concept of waiting for the tide brings us to probably the most difficult philosophical pill for the Western mind to swallow.
Which is?
The nature of time itself.
Well, actually, speaking of time, I was just looking at the recording timer here on the dashboard. We're about a third of the way through, and we have a ton of ground to cover. We really need to watch the time.
Stop. Stop right there.
What is keeping us on track?
You just did exactly what the Mahakal sources warn against. You checked your watch. You are stressing about Samay.
Samay, isn't that just the Hindi word for time?
It is a word for time. But in this philosophy, there are two completely distinct concepts of time, and confusing them is why we struggle so much with astrology.
Okay, break that down for me.
You are looking at Samay. That is mechanical time, linear, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Yeah.
It is uniform. It is what the texts call hora. It's the clock on the wall. It is the anxiety of running out.
Okay, so Samay is the clock and my constant deadline anxiety. What is the alternative?
The alternative is Kal.
Kal, as in Mahakal, the source text we're reading.
Yes, exactly. Kal is not the ticking of a clock. It is cosmic destiny. It's the quality of the moment. The sources break down the etymology of the Sanskrit word Kal beautifully. It's a compound of three sounds, Ka, Aha, and La.
Let's unpack that. Ka, Allah, what do they represent?
Ka asks who, referring to the creator, Prajapati.
Mm.
I refers to the seed, the origin, and La stands for Laya, which means dissolution or death.
Wow.
So Kal isn't just minutes passing. Kal is the entire force of creation, sustenance, and destruction rolled into one energy field. It is the swallowing of the universe and the rebirthing of it.
That is significantly bigger than a calendar invite. So Samay is me wondering if I'm late for lunch, but Kal is what? The season of my life.
It is the ripening. There is a wonderful gardening metaphor in the text that explains this perfectly. Imagine you have a garden. You want the grass to grow.
Sure.
Samay thinking, mechanical thinking, is going out there and pulling on the blades of grass to try and stretch them because you are impatient.
Which obviously doesn't work. You just rip the grass out of the soil.
Exactly. That is force. That is the Western obsession with making it happen right now. Kal is understanding the season, the soil, the moisture, and waiting for the vipaka, the ripening.
The ripening.
You cannot force the fruit to appear before its time. Jyotish is the study of Kal. It's mapping the quality of the moment to see if it's a moment for planting, for waiting, or for destroying.
It's funny you mentioned this elasticity of time, that it's not just a fixed grid. It reminds me of the movie Interstellar. The Bipin Bahari notes actually mentioned it as a modern parallel.
It is the perfect illustration of relativity. In the movie, the father goes near a black hole where gravity, which is essentially Kal, is immense. He spends a few hours there. When he comes back, his daughter on Earth is an old woman. Time is relative to where you are standing in the cosmos.
Right. A few ticks for him, a whole lifetime for her.
The ancient texts have a story almost exactly like this. The story of King Kakudmi and his daughter Ravati.
Oh, I read this one.
They travel to the realm of the creator Brahma just to ask a quick question about a marriage suitor for the daughter. They wait for what they think is maybe 20 minutes while a musical performance finishes.
Let me guess. When they get back, everyone they knew is dead.
Much worse. Ages have passed. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen. Humans have literally physically shrunk in size. The geography of the Earth has completely changed.
Just from 20 minutes.
Yes. Brahma laughs at them when they ask about the suitor. He says, King, those suitors you were asking about, their names aren't even in the history books anymore. Their empires are dust.
That is terrifying.
It is perspective. It shows that the rishis understood that time is not a fixed grid. It's a fluid, relative dimension. Jyotish attempts to map this nonlinear cosmic time, this call, onto our human experience. It tries to tell you where you stand in the relativity of your own life.
Okay, so we have the mirror for self-discovery, we have the cosmic download of the rishis, and we have this massive, fluid concept of call or destiny. But here is where I get stuck, and I think this is where anyone listening might push back to.
Go ahead.
If call is this giant predetermined cycle, if the fruit ripens when it ripens and I can't pull the grass, why do anything? Does free will even exist? Or am I just a puppet acting out a script written 5,000 years ago?
The eternal question. Fate versus free will. The Mahakal analysis tackles this head-on with my absolute favorite analogy in this entire deep dive. It is simple, funny, and profound. I call it the banana-mango theory.
The banana-mango theory. You're going to have to explain that one. I assume we aren't talking about a fruit salad.
No, it is about karma. Most people in the West think karma is just immediate moral balance. You know, I slap you, you slap me, or I work hard, I get a promotion. But the sources explain that karma is agriculture. It's farming.
Farming. Go on.
Imagine you plant a seed. That is your action, your karma. Now, if you plant a banana tree, how long does it take to get fruit?
I'm no botanist, but I think it's pretty fast. A year? Maybe less.
Roughly a year, yes.
Yeah.
It is quick. In Vedic terms, this represents prarabdha karma destiny that is ripe and ready to be experienced right now. You did something recently, and boom, here's the result. It's a banana. Quick satisfaction or quick punishment.
Okay, so banana karma is the stuff where cause and effect are totally visible. I study hard, I pass the test, I eat too much sugar, I get a stomachache.
Precisely. Well, what if you plant a mango tree?
Well, that takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
Years, decades even.
Exactly. 10, 15 years. You might plant a mango tree today, toil over it, water it, and you might actually die of old age before that tree bears a single fruit.
So I did all the work, but I didn't get the result. That seems incredibly unfair.
In the context of a single lifetime, yes, it seems unfair. But if you accept the cycle of call, that seed doesn't just disappear because your body died. The energy is stored.
Ah.
This is Sanchita karma, accumulated karma.
Yeah.
In your next life, or maybe 5 lives from now, that tree finally bears fruit. You are born, and suddenly, boom, you have a basket of mangoes.
Yeah.
You're born wealthy, or exceptionally talented, or lucky, or you were born with a terrible illness.
And I'm sitting there asking, why me? I didn't plant this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are eating mangoes from a seed you planted 3 lifetimes ago. The horoscope, the mirror, reveals whether you are currently in a banana season, where your actions yield quick results, or a mango season, where you are dealing with the harvest of the deep past.
That actually makes a terrifying amount of sense. It explains the randomness of life, why bad things happen to really good people. They're just eating old, bitter mangoes.
There is a specific story in the source material that illustrates this perfectly. It is about Bhishma Pitamaha from the Muhurta.
Bhishma. He was the great-grandsire, right? The warrior who couldn't be killed.
Yes, the ultimate symbol of duty. At the end of the Great War, he is lying on a bed of arrows. He's been shot hundreds of times. His body is physically suspended off the ground by the shafts of the arrows.
Just horrific image.
He is suffering immensely, waiting for the right call to die. And he asks Krishna, who's the avatar of the divine, he says, Krishna, I have scanned my past lives. I can see back 100 lifetimes. In all those 100 lives, I was a good man. I followed Dharma. I didn't sin. Why am I dying on a bed of arrows?
It's a valid question. If the system works, he should be dying peacefully in a bed of silk.
Right. And Krishna smiles and says, Bhishma, you looked back 100 lives, but you didn't look at the 101st.
The 101st life. What happened?
Krishna reveals that in that 101st life, Bhishma was a young prince. He was riding his horse through the forest and a snake crossed his path. In a moment of arrogance, or perhaps just childish cruelty, he picked up the snake with his bow and threw it into a thicket of thorns.
Ouch.
The snake didn't die immediately. It writhed on the thorns, punctured and bleeding, suffering for days before it passed. Krishna told him that karma was a mango seed.
Oh,
It
wow.
took 100 lifetimes of good deeds to build up enough credit, enough strength for Bhishma to even survive the reaction of that sin. But now, the mango was ripe. The snake writhed on thorns. Bhishma now writhes on arrows.
Wow, that is brutal. Precise, but brutal. It illustrates the point perfectly, though. The time had to be exactly right for the fruit to drop, but this brings me back to the free will question.
Yes.
If the mango is already ripe, if the arrow is already in the air, what is the point of knowing? If I can't stop it, why look in the mirror at all?
That is the crucial distinction. You cannot stop the storm.
Yeah.
That is the mango that was planted ages ago. But you can build a shelter. You can carry an umbrella. You can prepare your mind.
So the free will isn't in changing the event, but in how I experience the event.
Exactly. The Mahakal teaches that pain is inevitable. That's the arrow. But suffering is optional. Suffering comes from resistance.
I see.
The horoscope tells you, hey, in your 30th year, that mango tree from 10 lifetimes ago is going to drop a heavy fruit on your head. Wear a helmet. It gives you the agency to navigate the terrain. You can't change the weather, but you can definitely change how you dress for it.
I like that a lot. It shifts the whole thing from fatalism to strategy. It makes the mirror a tool for preparation, not just passive observation.
Precisely.
So, to summarize what we've unpacked so far, and my brain is definitely full at this point, we have the chart as a mirror for self-realization, not just fortune-telling. We have the source of this knowledge as a cosmic download Shruti received by the rishis, who are basically human antennas filtering out the noise.
Yes.
We have the distinction between Samay, the ticking clock that constantly stresses me out, and Kal, the massive ripening force of destiny. And we have the banana mango theory that explains why our actions don't always have immediate results, but eventually everything comes back around.
You have officially installed the operating system.
I feel like I have. My brain is definitely humming with that Nasadya Sukta vibration right now.
Good. Because now that the software is installed, now that the GPS is calibrated, and we understand the map of time and karma, we are finally ready to start the journey.
The journey through the stars.
The journey through the Nakshatras. The 27 lunar mansions that completely map the human psyche. We are standing at the very edge of the zodiac.
0 degrees Aries.
0 degrees Aries. The beginning of the beginning. In our next deep dive, we are going to meet the very first star.
Give us a hint. Who are we meeting?
We are meeting Ashwini.
Ashwini. Okay, give me a vibe check. What are we dealing with here?
Think. Speed. Think the fastest horse in the universe. The star of transport. The star of speed. The energy that rushes in at the dawn of creation to deliver the medicine. But I cannot say more than that. You will just have to wait for the next download.
The fastest horse in the universe. I really like the sound of that.
Just remember, as we finish this cup of coffee in our imaginary Vienna, the mirror is now polished. The question is, are you ready to look at the reflection?
That is a question for all of you listening to chew on until next time. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you at the starting line.